Canada in the back.
Yeah.
Alright, well, welcome folks. We're going to give it, I don't even know what, well it's not even 11 yet, so we're going to give it a couple minutes. In the meantime, I just did a panel. You should all have been there. Some of you were. Some of you weren't. Some of you walked in at the end. Because your Pokemans are more important than your friends.
I walked in at about 10:20, so I was there for more than half of it.
I showed up at the end because I like eating bacon.
No, Chris is like, son?
Okay, here. Chris?
There we go.
Okay, we're trying to get the least amount of reverb possible.
That would be ideal.
I'm trying this incredible urge just to go up and down my slider and reverb the hell out of it, but I know I'll get killed by everyone.
I will murder you in your sleep, Mike.
If you didn't do it during the whole podcast, we should be not going to do it now.
Hey, man.
I will straight up orphan knock your ass.
Wow. That's going mean, man.
Actually, I think my favorite, the most brutal way of a rider kaiju killing monsters was in Akito.
I thought that went for various reasons.
Oh, yeah, that was
They
messed up.
drowned guys who were not underwater.
It's like, I need to kill this human. Let's teleport them into a children's sandbox in the middle of a park. I'm like, what?
Let's teleport them into a wall.
Yeah, let's teleport them to the wall. Let's have this little 5-year-old go by and scream. It was always the same 5-year-old, too. Did anyone else notice?
Yeah.
It's always the same 5-year-old screaming. That poor kid, watch them become the next time. Just teleport shit.
Monsters
I got one more one. What do you
dicks.
got?
Pardon?
I got one more one. What do you got?
I got about 11:01. Alright, then it's time to start this bitch off. Hi, welcome to the Tokusatsu panel. My name is Derek Cabard, and I'm responsible for this being here, and thus everything that happens from now on is my fault.
Cool. Let's burn this place to the ground.
Beside me is, to my left, is my good friend, Big Mike from the 404s, who is also one of my co-players and co-GMs, etc., on the These Warriors Are Terrible podcast. And to my right is Chris McKinnon from Dixie Studios.
And the recently launched Overzeal Gaming live stream as well.
And he might be slightly more obsessed with Tokusatsu than I am.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's probably not really a question. So anyway, we're going to start the panel off by kind of talking about how we got into Tokusatsu in the first place, by talking about what appealed to us about it, give a bit of the history on it, because really what the topic of this panel is not just Tokusatsu in general, but it's Tokusatsu in a North American context. It's how we in North America have approached a form of Japanese media, a whole Japanese film and television genre that's not anime, that received not a lot of, in proportion of coverage in mainstream North American media, outside of what, Godzilla?
Yeah.
And Power
A little bit
Rangers.
of Ultraman.
Yeah,
I think I maybe made like a little bit of a splash in I think the early 80s, and then
VR
there was
Troopers.
you got
Beetleborgs.
you got VR Troopers, Big Bad Beetleborgs, and then we went and tried to produce one of our own series domestically.
Mystic Knights was actually amazing.
Mystic Knights
was a good show.
Okay, we're kind of getting away from it, but I do want to say there are, in my mind, two very solidly produced North American Tokusatsu series. One of them is Mystic Knights of Tir-Nog. The other one is Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future.
Yeah! Oh my god.
Captain Power has all the hallmarks of a Tokusatsu series, especially within that kind of superhero Tokusatsu genre.
they're trying to bring that back apparently.
I know Dodd's involved with
Yeah,
that
it
on
only
some
lasted,
level.
Oh dear.
it only lasted 13 episodes because it was too violent.
It was too everything for the time.
It was too awesome.
It was too freaking awesome for the time. So, alright, how we got into Tokusatsu? I'm gonna go with Big Mike first. Because he's trying to leave and we're gonna keep him here.
2 seconds to text me. I got into it about, when did Den-Up come out?
2007.
Thank you. In 2007, quite literally in 2 weeks as Den-Up was coming out, because I used to hang out at an anime store in Toronto. And just the guy there was this huge Tokusatsu fan. Someone is texting me. he was this incredibly huge Tokusatsu fan. He's like, Mike, you gotta check this out. It's Kamen Rider, and it's blah, 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 blah. Like, you mean like that Master Rider show? And he gave me the dirtiest look. He said, you sit down and you watch this. And I was just impressed by all of the effects work that went into it. Because it was done, you just have these massive trains moving through Japan, and it looks very realistic, and the characters were all just really funny. So I got into it that way, and then I started marathoning the show.
And now we have Tokyo.
It all comes back to trains eventually. So I got into Tokusatsu about 2.5 years ago. My friends Vangelis and the sadly now deceased Justin Carmichael were always talking about it to me. They're like, "Oh yeah, man, this is awesome. You gotta watch this. This is awesome." So I did. Vangelis basically handed me a flash drive at MagFest and said, here's all of Kamen Rider Double. I even ensured that all of the episodes and movies are in proper order and sequence for you. Go watch this now. And so I did. I watched it on the car ride back from MagFest, and I was unemployed at the time, so that entirety of that January was absorbed with me just lying in my bed with my laptop, with the drive stuck in the computer, watching all of Double, and then I started watching Master Ranger, and then I started watching Gokaiger, and I think it was Double got me into it. Gokaiger is what hooked me, and since then I've pretty much been watching everything I can get my hands on.
Alright. So I got into Rider about the time Kiva started. One of my friends, Paul, showed me the series, and I very much grew up watching Power Rangers, so when he showed me Kamen Rider, I was like, this is completely on my alley. So I started watching around when Kiva aired, and I pretty much have been watching Rider not every week since 2008, and I went back and watched all the old Heisei series, so I'm pretty much caught up on Heisei. As you can see, I have an arrangement of Guy toys in front of you here. And yeah, so that's how I got into it.
If this panel runs short, we're just going to play the Infamous game, and giant monsters are going to murder each other in this room, man. Hands up, yeah?
I'd just like to make a correction. I showed you Kiva, not Paul.
Wasn't I remember?
We were at my house.
Also, you Kabuto.
I remember being at Eric's, but whatever. I could be. This is 2008. I could be remembering it wrong.
It was 6 years ago, man. Let it go. Just let it go. So that's how we got into it. And now I was going to ask, what appealed to you guys? What really kind of kept you with it?
The thing that appealed to me most was when I used to watch Power Rangers back in the day, I used to see these people running around in spandex, and I started yelling at them for running around in spandex as a kid. I know it's not spandex now, but they didn't say that back in the
No,
day.
it's not spandex.
That's what RPM was for.
There was a whole rant in RPM.
Yeah,
It's not
but this was in
spandex.
1996, and RPM wasn't out yet. And I was yelling at them like, why is the Green Ranger the only guy who has body armor? And I kind of got tired of how
We did pass it around a few times.
the storylines were. And then I started watching Kamen Rider, and it took it to a lot more dramatic turn. I started reading all the backstories and how being a Kamen Rider is not a happy process. Especially in the Showa era, you get transformed into a monster and then they strap you into armor. And I thought, this is really insanely cool. And I just kept reading more and more about it. And I just like the fact that you have this incredible live-action effect work in Toku that you don't see anywhere else. Like maybe now in the Marvel films, but prior to those films coming out, like a lot of superhero, you couldn't, in the West, you can't really have a whole bunch of superhero shows without someone scoffing at it and kind of looking down on it a bit. Whereas in Japan, it's this beautiful culture, and it's so beloved, and there's so much good work that's put into it and trying to revitalize stuff continuously.
To be fair, I informed a couple Japanese friends of mine that I was getting really into watching Kamen Rider, and they kind of paused for a minute and go, wait a minute, isn't that kid's show? So, I'm not sure it's quite as accepting as we might hope. What's kept me with it? It's a different sort of storytelling than what I watch on TV in North America. And it's something that you don't see, even if it is a children's show, it's still a live-action superhero show, a superhero genre that takes itself seriously. With the Godzilla movies, They're people in rubber suits, but they take themselves so seriously. There's something endearing about these films, where even when you can see the seam on the back of a suit, they're still playing it up. They're like, yeah, I'm fucking Rodan. I'm here. I'm gonna kick Godzilla's ass. And I'm gonna give it my all while I'm doing that. It's an appreciation for me of the artistry that goes into it, of the fact that these suit actors are fighting each other in these wonderfully choreographed sequences where they can't see anything, right? The pinholes in their masks, just a little tiny slit that they can see out of. And they're jumping around, they are spinning kicks at each other, and so much effort goes into that choreography, so much work, and it shows. And we don't get shows like that in live action in North America. I mean, what are our superhero shows right now? Arrow. Arrow's actually pretty damn awesome. You should watch Arrow. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets one superpower fight every 6 episodes. That's it.
Well, that series is kind of just riding the coattails of the Avengers movie anyway.
No, that's the entire point of that series, is to ride the coattails of the Avengers.
Yeah.
All right, Chris.
For me, I've always just grown up, watching Power Rangers and then eventually Rider and such. I've always just loved the idea of, transforming into an armored hero and fighting for justice, or at least what some people believe to be justice, because that's amazingly subjective. As you can tell by the merit of owning the toys, I like to think anyone who's into the genre secretly wants to henshin someday, and I kind of share that as well. That's why I literally, in our house, we have a room full of just Toku toys. Like, we have boxes of this stuff. But, yeah, I've always just loved, transforming into an armored hero, and some of the designs of the suits are just so good, and I appreciate them on an aesthetic level, as well as, just seeing the powers they use is so cool. And I always look forward when I see a magazine scan, I'm like, oh, this new one looks so cool, I can't wait to see what it does, and all these new forms and such. That said, the new series, Gain, I've actually been looking forward to it more for plot reasons, and that hasn't really happened to me since Kiva and Double. Between O's and Wizards, it's kind of been more, oh, this form is cool and that attack's cool, but the stories haven't been, but no, now it's back to, I love the story.
Yeah, Gain is, which is weird because it's got both a lighter tone and a darker tone.
Yeah.
Kamen Rider Wizard was dark. Like, the entire point of that show was that the monsters, you get monsters by making people, special people, really freaking depressed.
Yeah.
And the monsters come out of their despair.
Yeah.
And so every episode, it's the monsters finding new ways to bring people essentially to the brink of suicide. And that's really, there were a lot of uncomfortable episodes like that. It's you find out that, oh yeah, this person, everything they're doing is to try and preserve their family house from when they were a kid. Just so they can, not even so they can live in it, just so they can own it, so they can have some connection to their family. What's the monster do? He walks in and he's like, yup, watch as I set your family house on fire. And I'm like, wow, these guys aren't just dicks, they are legit monstrous, but this show's making me uncomfortable. And then you get Gain, which is the weirdest retelling of West Side Story that I've ever seen.
My buddy Evan over here, who is very up and up on the story of the Sengoku War, has been making very nice comparisons between the characters of Gain and the actual Sengoku War.
Well, yeah, and Gain's setup is that ostensibly it's a bunch of hip-hop troops in a town that are using superpowers to battle for who gets the stage for dance numbers.
That's legit what's happening.
But they battle for it by summoning monsters in this almost Pokemon-style competition until their dealer for how they get their monsters says, you know what, I want to up this game. Here's a magic belt that will turn you into a samurai, and then you can fight the monsters. And it turns the guy into a samurai whose theme is an orange.
That said, I still hate the way Guy Morgenstern looks. I like everyone else, not that.
I don't like the orange sword. I like everything else about it. I just don't like the He has a sword that looks like it's an orange slice.
It is, yeah.
Mind you, his opponent is a medieval knight whose weapon is a banana.
The banana spear.
It is a banana that's been unfolded so it becomes a lance.
Yes.
See, I can't complain ever again about a Kamen Rider's outfit because I've still seen the worst, and it stops me from watching that show. The one where it was the spaceship theme one.
Was it?
I love
Yeah,
Forza.
Forza was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a good show, but I just look at that armor and I'm like, no.
You mean Kamen Rider PlayStation 1? Seriously?
It's all space themed. He's got this weird cone head thing going on.
It's a
And
space
he
shuttle.
looks like a metal hero that they threw off the drawing board and had.
It's a space shuttle.
No, see, what was good about Forza was it was fun because it was a cast of characters that were just like, you have the main character who's just like, I want to be friends with everyone in the entire school.
Including a space satellite.
He gathers up this,
They made friends
group of
with AI.
people, like stereotypical people, one who like likes is like pretty boy, one who's like a football player, cheerleader, like
Forza is Buffy.
Yeah.
Forza is Kamen Rider Buffy.
And there's nothing wrong with
And there's nothing wrong with that, no. Forza's focus was different from a lot of Rider shows in that it placed an inordinate focus on the supporting cast of characters. And the whole concept behind Forza was basically that friendship is magical.
Yes.
That explains why I'm not a huge fan of Forza then.
It also explains why my wife loves Forza. But it was actually a pretty lighthearted show.
Oh, we got a question.
Yo.
Well, you know they're actually bringing over here, right?
Well, there's rumors about it being called Power Rider. There's a trademark filed, but I don't think they've actually confirmed. Yeah, Paul, I think the script that was put out was a fake.
Yeah, I think it's largely being considered an April Fool's prank at this point.
Yeah, they have registered a trademark for something called Power Rider, but we don't know if it's Decade or Forza or what it is. There's no official word on it yet.
And it's interesting because at this point they've thrown the schedule for what they're doing out the window. They're not doing Go Busters as a Power Rangers series, which isn't surprising.
I'm a little disappointed, but at the same not surprised. I am excited to see the dub of Kyoryuger because I just finished that. It was so good.
Kyoryuger is the Sentai series that just finished. So when we talk about Tokusatsu, there are all these different types of Tokusatsu. There's Ultraman, where you get your giant growing alien hero guy.
He was kind of the first, wasn't he? Yeah, he was. It was him.
And
Then it was, and then Ryder and.
All I know is Rider started in
Metal
71.
Heroes.
No, Ryder and Sentai happened at the exact. I was just trying to clip there. Ryder and a year after, they were created by Ishinomori and Kiriyama.
Yeah.
But we have these different shows. Metal Heroes tends to be about space cops, weirdly enough.
Which has seen a really nice resurgence lately thanks to the Galan crossovers.
Yeah, and if you watch Space Sheriff Gavin, it is one of the most messed up television series I've seen. My favorite is in the second episode, the evil alien space mafia steal a ship, turn it into a flying pirate ship, and threaten the Japanese government with destruction if they don't send something like $4 million worth of diamonds into space. So it goes through this whole process of the UN resolving that they're going to send diamonds into space to save Japan. And they do it. And then the aliens look at each other like, holy shit, I can't believe that worked. Guys, we totally have to see what else we can make the humans send us. The aliens actually sent out a list of unreasonable demands that they fully admit are unreasonable, and they start with the deed to Mount Fuji. And so they sent the deed to Mount Fuji into space because the aliens just want to troll them and see what they can get out of it. And the aliens eventually have to unleash their killer pirate ship. And it is. They took an oil tanker and turned it into a pirate ship that flies. For reasons.
Gokai Galleon?
Yeah, it kind of is. It's a very early, more pirate ship looking Gokai Galleon. Then you have Sentai, which are these teams of heroes, which we get Power Rangers out of. And then Kamen Rider, which is one man and his motorcycle and his magic belt against a legion of monsters. And it's awesome, and it's what a lot of people latch onto. Kamen Rider tends to be two-part episodes. It tends to focus a lot on the story, on the character development, on not just getting the monster of the week in, punching him up, sending it in the giant robot, and getting him out again.
That said, Gaim seems to be going away from the two-episode format, which I appreciate.
Yeah, Gallium is getting very, I don't want to say episodic, it's getting very serial.
It
It's
is.
that every episode leads into another, and they're not always about fighting monsters. They're often about fighting each
No,
other.
the most interesting part of the series so far is that the huge twist that we all totally called day one was revealed in episode 13.
Yep.
So like, I'm just wondering where do we go from here? And it's exciting to see every episode every week.
It also features a flamboyant Japanese gay patissier.
Yes.
I love Bravo.
Who takes on the form of a durian-themed Roman centurion.
The Durian Centurion. Haha, I see what you did.
Not even kidding there. And his belt screams, Mr. Dangerous.
And then has boxing ring bells.
Yeah.
Play it, play it.
Please.
Play the mic.
Funniest character.
They know what they're making with these shows. They know when they're making something ridiculous, and they run with it. It's very endearing.
That's the thing, though. I kind of miss a lot of the older Toku because I'm trying to get into Black, and I've got to finish watching Kuga. Back when it was treated a little more seriously,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm just going through like all the stuff in Kamen Rider Black. For those that don't know, Kamen Rider's last big hit before the Heisei period, which is the current period of Heisei, if I've got that right.
Yeah.
The last really big success they had was Kamen Rider Black, which was sort of a bit of a revival of all their old properties, because it was basically equivalent to their next generation. They got a whole new writer, they had a whole new storyline, and they kind of went back to the very serious storyline. This is a very tragic concept. And one of the things that kind of marks that show for me is every so often in Kamen Rider, you'll have this, back in the day, you had these squadron of little children who were fans of Kamen Rider, and to subvert that, they made it that these kids were basically a Nazi project. I'm not making that up, it is actually kind of sad. They genetically manipulated these kids to have the brains of adults and to be the bad guys' little think tank that they had. And then what happened was Black saved them, and they all kind of worship Black, but they all talk like adults to Black. And they're like, Black, we believe in you, and blah, blah, blah. They were all talking like adults, just kind of looking at it like, this is kind of endearing, but at the same time, this is really twisted.
Well, yeah, let us not forget, the very first Kamen Rider was created by an organization called Shocker, which has sort of become, at times, the overarching villainous organization to trot out whenever you need to make a Kamen Rider movie.
Yeah.
And they horribly manipulated his genetics and body to turn him into a super being
That was partially a grasshopper.
that was partially a grasshopper. Yeah, that's pretty horrifying compared nowadays when most of the riders just had to luck into their belts.
Yeah.
Or someone builds it for them, depending on the series.
You go back in time and give yourself the belt.
After you throw it into the fucking lava.
That was amazing.
I can never be a Kamen Rider again.
Oh hey, pass me, yoink.
There was a manga released about the production of the first Kamen Rider, because if I'm not mistaken, Kamen Rider came out before Sentai did.
Yeah,
But like-
1971 and then 1974 was Sentai.
Yeah.
And the guy who does the Kamen Rider Spirits manga was retelling the story of how Kamen Rider was begun. And it really paints Hirayama, the main producer of the show, in an incredibly duress light, because he just wants to get out this superhero show that isn't Ultraman, but he kind of wants to have that darker focus. So he calls down Shotaro. He keeps going to Shotaro Ishinomori, who, if many of you don't know, did a lot of the original background concepts for Kamen Rider, as well as most of the origin stories. And Ishinomori at the time kind of had a bit of a reputation, could be comparable. Imagine if you asked the Attack on Titan guy to make you a superhero Saturday morning show. That was basically what he did. And the thing was, Ishinomori fell in love with the concept of making a superhero show. So he's like, I'm gonna make a guy that wears a skull. And Hirayama would run back to the producer like, no.
Skullman was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
And then Kamen Rider Skull.
Yeah, and we just kept having to go back and forth trying to get funding, and Ishinomori's like, here's a new concept. Nope. Here's a new concept. Nope. 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 And the funny thing is, they almost got canceled their first, in the first run. If Kamen Rider 1 had shattered his leg, and they changed the theme when they switched to Rider 2, we wouldn't have Kamen Rider.
Another interesting fact is that Super Sentai only got its start because a time slot freed up because of some Kamen Rider production related issues. It was around the time of Amazon, I believe.
Yeah, that's why, because Amazon was too much.
Amazon got canceled partway in.
Yeah, Amazon got canceled, and that's how Super Sentai got its time slot.
Because after a couple seasons of Kamen Rider being successful, they said, okay, Ishinomori, run with it and do whatever you want.
He said, okay, I'll
Bad
outblood RoboCop.
Yeah, he speaks really, really terrible Japanese. And he's from the Amazon.
Cuts the guy's head off
And
and chops.
we're not even sure what the hell he's supposed to look like anymore. And his belt,
I believe it was based on a Komodo dragon.
Yeah, he is.
I like to think Amazon is based off Sonic the Hedgehog if he got covered in mud.
yeah, I can see it. Amazon! So Amazon, how's it going? Amazon!
Amazon, there's a bad guy over there, and he's ripped his head off.
Oh wow, that's...
And he's just chewed his shoulder.
Is that even martial arts that he's doing, or is he just kind of flailing wildly with his... Why does he have claws? What the hell am I watching?
Fights it and goes.
That's time you see him in Spirits, and you see him at full power chopping guys in half.
I have a feeling that's something we should riff track.
The first time I was ever introduced to Amazon was during the Decade movie.
Yes.
Where he straight up basically murders a guy, and I didn't know anything about Amazon at that point. I thought that Amazon was a bad guy.
Just that scream is just bizarre. I'm like, that scream is not too different from the Shocker Trooper
I
screams.
know, yeah, it's the Shockers, you know, like, Eee! Eee! They sound like they're orgasming Nazis.
They basically were. If you look at the backstory, Shocker is a bunch of Nazi remnants that used a lot of their gold to fund their own.
That's why their emblem is the condor.
And they use their troopers as missiles.
And that's why they make Starfish Hitler.
That was a legit kaiju from early series.
Starfish Hitler. Yeah.
That was an X.
That was a series where they would just take they would spin one wheel, then spin the other wheel, and make a kaiju out of whatever came up.
Okay, historical figure, animal. Let's see what we get.
And then they went back to that with the, what was it, I always want to keep saying Keeper Ranger, but it's not what I'm thinking of. Aberanger. Where every single monster was an animal, a household device, and a plant. And thus you wound up with the episode they couldn't adapt for Dino Thunder because the monster looked too stupid. Where it was a teddy bear and and a piggy bank. And I can't remember what the last thing was. And a mushroom.
Did they make it into like they did like their own riff tracks?
Yeah, they did riff tracks.
That's why I love
translated the Aberanger episode, and they had the original Aberanger theme song on it.
Yeah.
And it's just Power Rangers riffing on a Sentai show. What does Japan know about Power Rangers?
I remember Die Ranger. There was actually a kabuki monster. So it was like full on just giant kabuki, and his power would be he'd go over to people, touch them, and they turn into kabuki, like makeup, hair, everything.
You don't mess with Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD will fuck your shit up.
But yeah, it's
Please no swears.
Sorry.
Family friendly.
Still technically Saturday morning, so.
Okay, anyway.
You have a question?
Right soon.
There was another really bizarre bad guy in Black RX. He had frozen bananas or something.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that.
Did you see Mike's face going, oh yeah.
I think we need to watch that.
That was amazing. Because RX, it's the only Kamen Rider series I found to actually have a sequel with the main protagonist. Every other time there's always a handover or something.
Yep.
And the reason was because Black was so successful, and they kind of looked at Black and they said, we can't be as dark as we were. So let's have a little more fun.
Just a bit of trivia for anyone who saw the Masked Rider.
Yeah, that's RX.
That show was adapted from Black RX. And they also recently adapted Ryuki into Kamen Rider Dragon Age, which was vastly superior.
Yes and no. I liked Kamen Rider Knight more.
Oh yeah, Knight was a better character than the original, I think.
Yeah.
Well, the problem was they had budget problems the entire run through that. That show never had the chance. They would get bumped from time slots. They would get frequently Their last like 10 episodes, I think, never saw the light of day, except unless they were streamed online. And I was actually reading interviews about it after the fact. And the final episode, the reason why you have 13 riders using, what happens is, in Dragonet, the idea is that there's 13 riders and they're protecting the world.
Or it's kind of a Highlander scenario where they have to fight each other.
Like, yeah. And in the end, they wanted to do a nice big scene where all 13 of the riders were fighting together. They could not afford enough stuntmen to have them fight the bad guy. So they actually just had to get a bunch of guys line up, just pressing buttons on their belts, and that is how the season ends. Which is kind of sad. But they're like, we just did the best we could. And we're still proud of what we did.
For anyone else here who has watched Tokusatsu, anyone want to speak up and just give a comment on their favorite series or anything?
Well, actually, just to think about Dragnet, I've actually heard that apparently Japan went and actually watched the English episodes of Dragonet,
And then
it's
redubbed
become
them.
a cult following there.
And it got redubbed back into Japanese with the guy who voiced over the English version of Kamen Rider Knight, Wing Knight, was the guy who originally acted as the character from Kamen Rider Knight in Ryuki.
It's been that way with a lot of Power Ranger shows in Japan as well.
Yeah, SPD got redubbed back in because Deca Ranger was not nearly as good as SPD was. I think there was at least one other Super Sentai series.
Natural Ranger, I know. Mystic Force.
Mystic Force got
Mighty
redone.
Morphin as well.
They did? I didn't hear about Mighty Morphin, but I completely understand. I mean, after all, Mighty Morphin, the cool thing about Mighty Morphin is season 2, or it might have been 3, of Mighty Morphin, they didn't have enough footage for when they were producing it, so they actually got the Japanese production company to produce some combat footage and Megazord battle footage exclusively for the Mighty Morphin season.
That was season 1.
No, it wasn't season 1, because that was based on Zyu Ranger.
No, at the end of season 1,
It was the end of season
they
1.
still used some of that new footage.
Oh yeah?
Like going into season 2 as well.
Okay.
That was,
They still cut out
I know it was during. I know some of it was during season 2 because that's referred as Zyu 2 by the fandom.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions about Toku? Here, if you kind of coming in, you don't know much about it. Does everyone have a strong background in Toku? We can just go nuts. Okay, cool. Let's just go nuts.
all right, let's go nuts.
Because I kind of came into this panel thinking, what if there's someone in the back who just doesn't know what the hell we're talking about? And
Front.
What?
Front.
What?
I have basically no idea what you guys have been talking about.
Then ask us questions and we'll answer.
If you watch Power Rangers at all, you basically have the idea.
We're just not allowed to talk about Power Rangers that much because it's a Power Rangers panel. And that's we're kind of having a Power Rangers embargo right now. That's his panel.
No offense to you, but when I tell people about Kamen Rider, I always sell it to them as Power Rangers, but with better writing.
Oh, it is.
No offense, I love Power Rangers.
Power Rangers had some seasons that had great writing. RPM.
The least derivative and yet the most interesting writing.
But then we've had the recent seasons. They're adapting Gokaiger now. I've seen one of the Super Mega Force episodes.
I saw
There's only one of them.
No, there's 2 now, I think.
Oh.
I think the second one came out.
You know what I heard? Apparently in episode 2 of Super Mega Force, they're using the Die Ranger suits. I was waiting ever since they announced it to know if they were going to use the pre-Zeo Ranger, or like the suits that were.
My problem is that they're inconsistent with how they're changing things. Like in Gokaiger, they have phones that they use to turn into previous Sentai teams.
Yeah.
And it's great. The phones scream the name of the team. And that's solid. But then but this one they did a couple of the original Henshin calls, and then not others.
I know that's inconsistency is well. It's not even that. What bugs me is the fact that they're not separate powers like when the Power Rangers changed, the power sources. It's kind of an add-on because first they have to henshin into the Mega Force / Ghost Ranger suits, then they use the Gokaiger phone to transform into Super Mega Mode, and then they can transform into other Rangers. So it's like compounded forms on top of each other, and it's completely unnecessary.
You got a question over there?
I'm just saying, it's not for this. So Gokaiger is Decay.
Yes, Decade was a sampling round for them, and then they did Gokaiger, and it was so good. Gokaiger literally was Super Sentai Decade. And the cool thing is they had way more to go on.
And they did. They had the Gokaiger episodes were so much better than I really don't like Decade.
I hate Decade more for the way that it ended.
Well, my problem with Decade is they had the option of telling Bookends to the writer stories, but they decided to go into universes for previous ridership. Okay, Kamen Rider Decade involves them jumping from universe to universe.
They couldn't afford to get all the old actors back.
Yeah, but they could have bookended some of the series, and instead they changed them. So they go to the Ryuki world. In Ryuki world, they explain how it's only logical that all law now, all trials are decided by having 13 guys in suits fight each other to the death, and the winner gets to decide whether you're guilty or innocent. And someone literally says, it is the only reasonable alternative we could think of.
My main problem with Decade is at the same time it was different enough that it told a different story, but at the same time it was similar enough that it gave away a lot of major plot spoilers to the Heisei series.
Yeah.
So if you didn't watch the 9 main Heisei series before watching Decade, you got spoiled on a fair amount of plot points.
Yeah, but then again you had Gokaiger where they had 1 or 2 actors from the old Sentai series show up. And they bookended them. They looked at what are these guys doing now?
Yeah, it was great.
And
Sorry.
Yeah, they're badass. These guys don't have powers anymore because they gave them up to stop evil alien empire. So the Power Rangers were like, I'll give their morphers away at the end of the season.
And some occasions they actually gave them their powers back temporarily, like when the Gosagers stole them back in the movie.
Yeah, although they get them all back at the end of the series.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers.
Also Hurricaneer was just like, yeah, we want to fight again.
Yeah, the Hurricaneers straight up stole their powers back.
Ryu Ranger didn't even need his powers. He just fought.
Yeah, and that was the great part.
I always loved those characters who were like, screw you, I'll fight you on Henshin, bro.
I love that the Badger Ranger, he's like, yeah, man, I'm not a rider anymore, but dude, I'm still a wizard.
Yeah.
I still got magic. The hell do I care? Yeah.
I think my favorite part of Decade was that they actually had, like in the Kabuto part, they actually had the Grandma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Grandmother said this.
I think my favorite part of Decade is still when they went to Hibiki's world.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was a
I have the MP3 of that final battle song.
Yeah, I was kind of coming in and out of Decade because I hadn't seen all this. Like, Mike, did you like Hibiki but you hate the end? Of course, everyone did. It's just like, just watch the Hibiki episodes. I stared there, I was like,
I'm not fond of Hibiki as a series. I will admit, it is my favorite episode of Decade. Solely because it condenses all of Hibiki down into 2 episodes.
it fixes the ending.
And there's a guy whose way of killing monsters is to stab his electric guitar into them and then shred on it until they explode.
Literally. That's how he gets things done.
Hibiki wasn't supposed to be a Rider series, to be fair.
Yeah, it got ported in, and it really was an interesting experiment into the Rider franchise. And people think it belongs there just for how different it is.
Yeah.
Because there was this, prior to Hibiki, there was this ongoing swing to make the Riders young and pretty and going through these life lessons. And Hibiki kind of turned around and said, by its existence, said, we're going to have a bunch of mature adults, we're going to have a coming-of-age story of a young man, and we're going to have this story unfold. Unfortunately, it kind of tanked in the ratings, if I'm not mistaken. It didn't do very well.
It also changed hands with production teams and directors.
I was going to say they did a drastic direction change mid-show that kind of turned the whole show in its ear.
Yeah, and they introduced a side character that no one liked, who eventually became
Xeranos.
Yeah, who would eventually become a really great character in the show.
Yeah.
But the first half of Hibiki, I think, is an absolutely amazing show. And
I loved it.
Along the Rider. Because you have this old-fashioned Japanese mythology, and they create these writers that are this entire organization to support them, and everyone's just these good people trying to just do good work, and everyone's all grown up and matured. All these youth problems are just treated as very silly moments in your life that you will grow out of. And the entire show is about growing up and becoming a man and realizing what's important in your life.
We still got time left. We're going strong here.
Yeah, we're going fast here.
His ringtone is Just Live More from Kamen Rider Guy.
Yep.
Just going with Decade quickly, personally, I think the best episodes in Decade were the Den-O world, just because they took Den-O and like
They took-
but everything Deno
Yeah.
has.
Okay.
Like, you know,
I,
Momo's in it. He possesses Decade for a little bit.
I will admit, the Decade world does feature, sorry, the Deno world does feature Decade's greatest moment. Well, sorry, Deno's greatest moment. It is everything that Deno could be. There's a moment at the very end, after the case left, Owner walks in the car and he says there are still problems in space and time. And the only way to deal with this is to go into the past. And the way he's delivering it, and the way the scene is shot, and the music, I expected to cut to the Doctor Who music. It is like, Owner's like, yeah, screw it, I'm a Time Lord. This train is my TARDIS.
That's not my theory for who Owner really is.
I don't know, I have my own private desire for Owner, Cake Boss, and Kamen Rider Skull, and Gavin to all team up and be the team old man, and to travel through space and time, beating up evil while being old and awesome.
Has anyone heard the actual official, unofficial, canonical explanation for where all the writers come from? Yeah?
Oh, I like this one.
Yeah, this was my favorite. Because it was for a friend's birthday. He's really huge in this stuff. More so than anyone here. It's a shame he couldn't make it to this convention. He's the one who was kind of teaching me about how Skullman was kind of the predecessor to all this stuff. And I found out that just before Shotaro Shinomori, the guy who wrote most of this, the original stuff that all Kamen Rider and Toku is based off of, he found a mangaka whose art style he liked. He started feeding him scripts. It's like, this is the story I always wanted to tell that I never had the chance to. And it became a 7-volume manga, and it was released in English on Tokyo Pop. And it's, unless you're a Rider fan and a hardcore Toku fan, none of it makes sense. But if you're a Toku fan, it explains everything.
That manga was awesome.
It was, because the explanation, if you know Skullman at all, the concept is that Skullman is in fact a powerful psychic who's getting revenge, but he learns that the people he's getting revenge on are his own family, which is messed up. And the manga kind of sets up how Skullman is in fact the guy, every single time a rider is being made, he's the guy behind it. Because he psychically takes over whoever can make the riders, and that's why they all look the same. It's his own aesthetic that he's putting into them. Conversely, the great leader who's been behind everything is his own dad, who is constantly making these organizations over and over and over again, and why all these monsters appear is because he is actually creating these monsters. They have no minds of their own. He takes them over and they go fight for him. So that's Ishinomori's explanation. I just love that.
Yeah.
Has Skullman ever been featured in any of those giant Tokusatsu crossover movies?
Just Rider Skull, not Skullman himself.
That was, the closest we got was Skullman.
Yeah, because Skullman's part of the Shinomori's estate, so they can't actually touch it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why Skullman has never appeared, but all the fans were like, yeah, it's so good.
Well, they did make a Skullman anime, but it had nothing to do with the Shinomori.
Which took me off.
Yeah.
Another reference to Skullman is Skullman from the Mega Man games. Yeah.
We'll move to that character in the Street Fighter game.
Skullmania.
Skullmania.
Yeah.
It was a very good game.
Skullman is thoroughly infiltrated Japan's popular culture without anyone realizing.
Another thing that like people like, a lot of people are like when riders first like announce like we see scans and stuff like that. This is a stereotypical thing that all Toku fans do. They'll see like the suit like when the first guy first showed up, everyone was like, "Oh my god, that's so ugly! Why? Oh, we don't like it." And then people get used to it. Like Tokuger, everyone first saw Tokuger suits, and everyone were
I
like,
still hate Tokyo.
"No,
The Megas were stupid.
no, those are." But I literally watched episode 1 like last week.
Yes, you
Fell in
train
love with
owner.
Oh god.
If you can take a gimmick like fruits and locks and keep going with that gimmick in the show,
No, but
it's good.
the reason people accepted the fruit lock thing is because Guy had an amazing story to go around it and explain it.
No, yes, of course. But
It's Kamen Rider Fruit Ninja. That's how it immediately was sold to people.
well, that's what this
Ichigo Arms is Fruit Ninja.
Yeah. Well, no, if you look at even the logo in the opening song, it's Fruit Ninja. They start slashing fruit out of the air.
One thing I find interesting, because you mentioned how in Japan, like adults kind of look down on Toku. It gets homaged a lot to a lot of stuff that comes over here. It was kind of hilarious because I have a friend who's completely in love with Beautiful Joe, And he's talking about Beautiful Joe, and he's just how much he loves him. But you know, it's a Kamen Rider tribute, right? He's like, what? What's Kamen Rider? And I got angry for about half a second. Then I just started explaining the fact that the first boss is a bat boss, which is always the first boss of Kamen Rider.
It's always either a bat or a spider.
Yeah, and just like the scarf, the henshin to go, the passing of the mantle from one rider to the next. He's just like, are you serious? Like, yeah.
I have to play those actually.
Rider thing.
My absolute favorite thing was the fact that when Smash Bros. Came out, because I'd never played Animal Crossing before, there's a song by KK Slider, which is the opening theme to the original Kamen Rider show. What? Yeah, you can hear it in there, in the background. KK Slider in Animal Crossing plays the Kamen Rider opening theme in his version. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, let's go Rider Kick. And my friends are all like, oh, I don't know what this song's really cool. And I started humming the words to Rider, the opening show. I was like, what are you doing? It's the words. This doesn't have words, it's from Animal Crossing.
Little do you know.
Oh, it's not. What's his name? KK Slider. Oh my god!
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me? Did nobody? But they don't know. They don't get the college stuff. Every time there's a scarf, I've seen so many anime where someone does a Rider Belch henshin joke.
This one. Madoka Magica. Ryuki.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Magica, so I don't know about that.
It is totally Ryuki.
Yeah, that's
One of the things I think we should mention, Tokusatsu, the recent show Samurai Flamenco. It is totally a Tokusatsu, mostly Super Sentai tribute show.
Yeah, I know.
The first
His
like
mentor's
almost half
Rider 1,
was Kamen
right?
Rider.
His mentor is basically Rider 1.
Oh yeah.
It's like, because I'm looking at the descriptions, like he was actually a martial artist, did his own stunts, I'm like, that's Rider 1. That is actually Rider 1. I can't, the guy who played Hojo Takashi, I can't remember his name.
Fujioka.
Fujioka, thank you.
And he's back for the new Showa versus Heisei movie.
Yeah.
I love how they're getting the fans to vote on who wins that fight.
Having an online poll to decide which side wins the movie. I just hope they actually release both endings.
Who's the other side?
It's Heisei Riders versus Showa Riders.
Oh, this show is like...
So the iconic riders for each side are
So
each
like
going
there's a
nine.
scan where you see Joker like teaming up with Black, and they're just
Which is amazing because one was inspired by the other.
Yeah.
I gotta see that.
But I do hope they release both endings.
I probably won't.
You mentioned that the bat or spider
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, it's
Typically, it's sort of the
one of the tropes.
What about the shows where the bat survives for really long time?
Was he still the first boss?
Right?
The point is he's the first one they fight.
It's a tradition thing, it's not like something monogamous.
They didn't do it in double.
Yeah, they didn't do a double, they didn't do it in Kiva.
Actually, they did it in Kiva. The first one they fought was the spider one, Itoya. He did survive through most of the series, but he was the first one they fought.
Yeah, no, because the first one they fought and killed was the horse guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little thing they do, they don't always do it, obviously, because you can't see it. Kind of, but, you know, sometimes they do.
Also didn't do it enough.
That guy.
But we just listed 3 writer shows where they didn't do it, as opposed to all
Actually,
ones
they
where
did
they
it in double too.
We said double.
You said double.
No, they did it in double. Remember the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah! No,
That was a tribute to that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone else seen, I kind of found it funny, Derek was actually over at my house for the first time. He was just pawing through my DVD collection. He found a copy of DVD copy of Kamen Rider the First in English with subtitles, and he looked at me. He pulled it off the shelf. He's like, "How do you have this?" I was like, "What do you mean? Is this fake?" No. And he looked at me with this half a second of reverence that's never ever come back. And he's like, "How did you find this?" I went,
To be fair, now having wandered around Pacific Mall a bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, though I will say for Tokusatsu and Power Rangers fans, I can announce if you listen to These Warriors Are Terrible, which is the gaming podcast that Mike and I are on, we are doing a Power Rangers series of episodes. It's going to be called Power Rangers Night Watch. We have a theme being done for it. Featherweight's working on the logo and some sketches for what the Rangers actually look like. And I'm kind of picturing people as being RPM with zombies.
Cool.
Yeah, Derek,
I'm looking forward to it.
Mike, you can pick any personality you want, so don't give me that kind of carte blanche. I've watched too many Super Robot shows.
We've got Mike Dodd as Night Watch Red. We've got Big Mike here as Night Watch Green. Tom White Blue. Cassie Chu for Pink. And Connell Macbeth, aka Dr. Holocaust for Black.
Is that when you're a Megas XLR fan?
Right here.
That's who my character is.
I've heard and I'm very excited.
I got you.
I knew what Vegas before you showed me it.
Yeah, but I got you down.
Okay, good for you.
So anyway, we're just basically wrapping up now. We've got our 5-minute warning.
Yeah.
But yay! We got through a panel and people actually attended.
I love you.
Yeah.
What's it after us?
I don't know. There were. Oh, okay. It's Adam Smith and his armoring.
Leather.
His leather. Ooh.
It's gonna get a lot more.
Oddly appropriate.
Yeah. There were some menacing characters though in the back there that were staring at us for a bit. I thought they were waiting for their panel room, but apparently not.
Does anyone have any token questions?
Have any of you seen Zara?
Yeah.
I did watch one episode of Garo and I should keep watching
A
it.
little bit.
Yes, you should.
I like how
Garo so much.
I like how the guy who played Saga and Ray is in the movie.
Garo is kind of an interesting animal because it's what happens when you get a Kamen Rider producer, a Power Rangers producer, and a horror director in the same room and say, we want scary monsters. Well, we've done all this stuff. No, we want scary monsters.
No, you give us a scary monsters.
So they do all these horror angles and things like that to make these monsters, and basically you have a whole bunch of monsters that take over people's traumas and become these horrors and things like that. And then there's Garo, this amazing guy in golden armor who hunts them down actively. And the entire the first season is some of the most compelling stuff I've ever seen coming out of Tokyo, except the fact that it's all
Look at the schedule.
You're distracting me, that's what you got. It's all really Shush. I forgot my train of thought now. That's your fault.
That's okay, it's okay, Jerry.
I actually did lose my train of thought because I never going to say.
Okay, fine. I'm just going to whisper 2 words into your ear, and that will close out the panel because believe me, funniness will happen.
They're not going to get that.
Come on, no, do it for him.
I can't. I'm too excited.
Do it.
Okay. Do it. To explain this, part of our podcast is These Words Are Terrible. We just recorded an episode that hasn't even seen the light of day yet, where I was game mastering that, and the entire thing was I had all these insane characters in. They all fell in love with one particular one, which is this incredibly flamboyant character. He's insisting that I try and I guess you want me to do a version of him in a giant robot.
Yeah, okay, let's do
Is that what you want?
Let's do Lord Nauticus in a giant robot.
So he's very high-pitched voice. And I'm so excited we're going to be fighting monsters from Japan. Slamming my giant robot and I'll pound them to senselessness. No one's going to get this.
Still funny.
We have like a minute left.
If you want to amuse me for that last minute, talk about tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills.
Okay, so
someone acknowledge that?
So there
I've
is
seen more episodes of
North
that than I have
American,
Kamen Rider.
a Tokusatsu series that we don't like to talk about. It's called Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills.
We'll talk about the Sailor Moon Western Toku before we talk about that one.
No. Okay, so and here is the concept behind it. They are actually the title is literally the entire show. They are teenagers at a high school in Beverly Hills, and they have magical tattoos that cause them to put on surprisingly skimpy amounts of spandex and terrible masks to fight aliens.
So they're halfway between Power Rangers and the Sea.
And they turn into like one being too.
Yeah.
It's like a knight or something.
Yeah, and there's a head in a jar that's like the most cut-rate Zordon
It's
you
not
will
even
ever
in a
see.
jar. It's just like a pile of sludge.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, another less known American Toku show I should mention because it's amazing. Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
Yeah!
Villain was voiced by freaking Tim Curry.
Yeah!
Mother freaking Kill-Con!
It's true, and it was an Ultraman adaptation, and they managed to take it in a totally different direction.
That was a weird show.
It was a weird show, and it was so random.
Dude, I'm gonna hack. It's in 1993. I'm gonna hack all of these doors shut.
It's true. Apparently, everything in that town was attached to the internet. Because Malcolm Frink would be like, "Yep, my evil plan this week to serve my master Kilo Khan, who I accidentally created and apparently can't turn off, is I'm going to create a computer virus that will shut all the doors, or that will turn all the sprinklers on at the school, thus flooding the school.
That will redirect food only to my house.
I will suborn the pizza network for my own because girls won't go on a date with me." And that's mostly Malcolm's motivation is, girls won't go on dates with me. Screw it, I'm going to destroy the world.
I'm going to rewatch the show this
His ambition was so minimal.
Oh yeah, and meanwhile, his talking computer virus, who somehow became his boss, just randomly goes, Meat Thing, I need you. I need you to go forth into the world and release a virus so that I can better take over something.
Damn you, Servo.
The stakes were so low.
An evil AI boss, so it's like Bucky O'Hare.
It is like Bucky O'Hare, segueing nicely, and I think we're done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming out. Slicing motions at me from the background. Thank you for coming out, guys. Thanks for enjoying Tokusatsu. Kind of the Power Rangers panel later this afternoon. Mike, can you turn off my camera, please? Thank you very much.